Retro.
Yeah.
Electro. Tech.
Oh yeah.
Hey, turn the lights back on. Wow. Retro electro tech. When real audio ruled the world.
Well, hello there once again. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Retro Ernest of Retro Electro Tech, and I'm wrapping up the work on this Empire Troubador Model 598 Mark II. We're looking at the bottom side, of course, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what I did to solidify connections, provide some strain relief. I already took care of the stuff on the top with the tone arm and all that. And as far as tone arms go, yeah, you know, it was a little fiddly, the assembly and all that stuff of the tone arm assembly. Not the hardest, not the easiest. It's just one of those things that there was, again, some fiddly things to deal with. And of course, when you're routing new tone arm wire through a tone arm, some are a little bit easier than others. Some are more fiddly and all that, but I didn't cover that, so I'm not really going to talk about it too much. But anyways, I'll zoom in a little closer over here in the bottom corner, and then after that I'll have the unit put back together and we'll go into some audio testing, maybe set the tracking force and all that stuff, whatever. But anyways, let me go ahead and get to it. Alright, so let's take a closer look at what I did here. So I know that this box bracket that I made with some scrap metal I had in the shop looks a bit overkill and kind of industrial and all that, and there's, as the old saying goes, there's more than one way to skin a cat. A person could just use a little plastic cable clamp and screw it to the inside of the plinth here and be done with it. Great. But I wanted something really substantial because worst case scenario, if this turntable is being moved around, it's in transit, whatever, and this cable gets hung up on something and it gets tugged on, yanked on really hard in the process of getting hung up on something. If all I had was a little plastic clamp, I'm kind of doubtful. I don't have confidence that it would hold up. And then the only thing between that and these connections is this tie strip. Now this tie strip is just some thin, you know, phenolic and these terminals here. So if it was pulled on really hard, that can easily pop loose, and then all these connections are torn out. And even worse, if this little delicate, you know, tone arm wiring here gets yanked on and it gets pulled out of the tone arm base or whatever, then that's wouldn't be good at all. So I wanted something really bomb-proof. Now that these connections are all permanent, I wanted something really bomb-proof. And this box back bracket, configuration is very strong. It's not going anywhere. I have 4 little screws here, but it's still in here nice and stout. It would take a major tug or yank to compromise this bracket. So there's that. So I'm thinking in terms of the future, what can possibly go wrong with, you know, a cable being yanked really hard, especially on these turntables, because I found a lot of these turntables really don't have adequate strain relief, at least to sustain a big yank or a pull. If you know the cable gets hung up, you're moving or whatever you're doing, it's in transit and all that. What can possibly go wrong? So, but then again, you can also just drop the entire turntable on the concrete too. So who knows? But as far as the strain relief end of it, yeah. So I just used a garden variety, Romex connector, and on that note, the portion of the Romex connector that clamps down on the cable, well, I ended up wrapping about 4 or 5 layers of some Gorilla tape on that section just to provide extra padding, in addition to the jacket of the cable, of course. And also too, in addition to that, when I tighten down the clamp, I just tighten it down modestly. You don't want to just, crank down on it to the point where you're squeezing, the life out of the cable. But it's tightened down modestly, but it also has extra padding, and that's all good. So it isn't going anywhere, and the wiring isn't going to be compromised at all. So there's that. Then the terminal strip here, as I mentioned, everything's soldered on here nice and bomb-proof. And then down here at the tone arm base, this tube, I added this plastic, bushing in here, or whatever, plug, and I just beveled out the edge of that connector so it sunk down in the tube, adhered it in place, and that adds a little bit more protection to the delicate tone arm wiring. Not that there were any burrs or anything like that in the tube, but still. Plus it just adds a nicer look, and it's all in the details, right? So all this is set up really nice. It's done very neat. So there's that.
Hello, I'm Tim the technician, and today, I'm going to answer an email question. The Wild Child Audiophile writes, what are some other uses for electrolytic capacitors? Well, sometimes when I've had too much to drink, I like to hit myself in the head with them. Like this.
Ouch!
I think this brings out the magic sound, because I'm basically an idiot. I hope that helps.
Oh!
Another thing I want to mention is the permanence of this. It could be undone. If a person ever wanted to go back to the original configuration, if they found the parts, some collector or whatever found the parts, an original cable, or connector, and they made up their own cable, male connector, made up their own cable, and found another a replacement socket, well, they could go back to that. I don't know why they'd want to do that, but whatever. Different strokes for different folks. So this can be reversed very easy. There's 4 little screws here and then the 2 on the tie strip, and take them out, and that's it. Maybe get it, if you're really worried about it, get a little bit of a wood putty and just fill in the little holes and whatever. No big deal. Now on that note too, this is a nice turntable. It's fairly collectible, but it's not Smithsonian rare. And what I did here is not going to alter the cosmetics. There might be a few little holes and, like I said, a little wood putty, but nothing that got hacked up, nothing that got all gouged or whatever. And certainly the exterior cosmetics haven't been touched. I have a lot of respect for this old gear and people's gear in general. I like to keep things as original as possible and not modify or hack around. But if I do perform a sympathetic modification like I did here, it's going to be done in such a way where it can be reversed without a lot of crap left over. This is very easy to undo, and as much as I would have liked to have seen this cable go out the back, if there would have been a factory hole drilled there, that's the way I would have liked to have seen everything go down. But it wasn't, and I certainly wasn't going to drill a hole there, because then that's altering the cosmetics of the unit. So I just left that alone because I don't want to alter any exterior, external cosmetics. But it would have been better that way, but it is what it is. What I would recommend to the owner, and I don't have any in the shop, is just getting some new feet. You can get some taller feet so you can create a little bit more space between the bottom of the plinth and the table you set the turntable on. So not a big deal. That's easy to do. I just don't have them in stock. The owner can certainly do that. Not a big deal, but I'd recommend that. This cable still fits underneath, especially when it's kind of like so, a little loop in it, and then, without creating a sharp bend, you can do that, and there's still enough space there. But it is thicker than the original cable, and that's why I say it's better to get some taller feet. So anyways, what I'm going to do now is get underway with getting this put back together. Then I'll set the tracking force, so forth, and end this with some audio testing. So let me go ahead and get to that. Alright, so let me set this Ortofon 2M cartridge to 1.5 grams. Yeah. Alright, close enough. I'm just going to run with that. Okay, and off camera I made sure that the turntable was level, of course. And you saw me check the tracking force with the scale, and that was a little over 1.5 grams, which is fine. So I did the actual setting of the tracking force off camera because I've done that in other videos. I didn't want to do that here because I just want to move on. And yeah, not a big deal at all. So our tracking force is looking good. I also checked with a protractor the yaw angle of the cartridge, and everything is looking good there. Now the cartridge mounts to that plate that I showed you in the first video, and it's got a couple screws that you mount the cartridge onto on the plate. Well, I didn't deviate or mess with those screws at all during this whole process, so I knew that the cartridge was mounted to that plate properly, nice and straight. So all I did was just, of course, remount the plate to the head shell with just that little knurled screw there. So when I reattached the whole plate, it went on nice and straight. I didn't expect that the cartridge was really out of alignment, but I checked it with the protractor like I just said, and it was looking good. So as far as all the basic setup aspects of things are concerned, everything's nice. I was playing some vinyl earlier too, stuff that I can't play on YouTube because of the whole copyright thing. Sorry about that. I wish I could play some vinyl, but I just don't want to go down that that rabbit hole with all the copyright stuff and this and that. So I have a piece of test vinyl there with some tones, so I will, at least for good measure, show that this is working, and we'll go from there. So let me just at least do that, and you could at least see it's playing at the right speed and all that good stuff.
Band 5, low frequency sine wave test tones. 1,000 cycles per second.
Okay, so we don't want to listen to that, of course. But yeah, everything's fine, and the the tones and the music I was playing, everything is nice and equal in both channels, both speakers. So great. The main thing in this video, it was just a short video, of course. The main thing, I just wanted to show what I did on the bottom side with all the connections and the strain relief and all that stuff. But otherwise, all the connections are sound and everything is looking good, sounding good, so great. For those of you that stuck with this all the way to this point, thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And as I always say, peace, love, music, and the vintage audio that brings it to your ears. Till next time, y'all take care.
This has been a Spinning Head production.